Welcome. Tonight we're going to talk about a group that we always hope we never talk about, because the only time we think about them is when things aren't going well. But let's start with introductions.
John Manini, Director of Operations, Milford Sewer Department.
Rudy Leoch III, Sewer Commissioner.
Thomas Morelli, Sewer Commissioner.
Rick Sinadella, Sewer Commissioner.
That's 5 words. That's more than we got out of you last
Yes,
time.
that's it.
So the sewer department, held up as a model, because it seems to be efficiently run. We seem to be happy. We haven't seen a lot of, compared to the water company with 30% increases and all. When was the last time we had a rate increase?
10 years ago.
10 years ago.
10 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
07.
Now, it's hard to believe that for 10 years with even 2-3% inflation a year, that you haven't raised the rates at all. What do you attribute that to? John being efficient?
I would say John runs a very tight ship down there. The guys do an excellent job. We do a lot of in-house repairs, so we're able to save some money that way. There was some debt prior to me coming on the board from some bigger projects that are coming off. We've budgeted for projects down the road in regards to like the one we're doing right now. So I think there's a whole slew of things that help us keep everything running at zero each year. And again, John does the budget, and he does a great job keeping it that way.
Yeah, we've been fortunate with the debt coming off a lot. That helped out quite a bit, all the projects that we did have. And like you said, we put money into our budget for repairs and stuff like that, and we do everything in-house. So, and the guys do everything else. We do basically everything ourselves.
And I don't think people understand that the sewer department is an enterprise fund. Only people who use sewer pay for it, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
And then always the question comes out, okay, how do you figure out how much sewer I'm using?
That goes off of water usage. We usually use the winter months, the first 3 months of the year. And
But that's got to be the lowest, right?
correct. So we're using your lowest flow rate. For most people, that's the lowest.
I was going to say, anybody with a sprinkler system knows come summer.
Yeah, we usually use, there's 3 different areas they take it from. We usually use November, December, January, December, January, February, or January, February, March. There's 3 different areas that they do.
Does it change much?
Go ahead.
This year here, the rate's gone down a lot with everyone, with all the water restrictions and everyone not using water because the bills are higher and everyone's cutting it down. So there is a little bit less of an income.
No, but I was
this year.
thinking, that's a good point to go to in a minute, but November, December, January, or December, January, February, I mean, what are you really using? Toilets,
No
showers?
outside watering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not washing cars, typically. So that's your lowest usage. You're not washing as many clothes, I don't think, because people aren't outside getting dirty as much, but, you know.
It's usually
think it's
why
fair.
we use those months, because that's what's coming down to us, so you can do it. Whereas if you use the summer months when someone sprinkles their lawn or garden or anything like that.
Well, no,
it
I'm
wouldn't
glad you
come-
don't, because
That wouldn't come to us, so
when
that's.
you get a $1,000 water bill, I don't want you using that as, you know.
Yeah.
Well,
the
there'll be a
reference.
situation where somebody would question the usage, and John will take an average over the year. And sometimes it winds up being, they've asked for an abatement, and their bill would actually be more because he's using,
the worst.
April through December.
Yeah.
And we'll say, listen, your bill's already what it is, just take it.
Yeah,
And
best
then
do
there's-
not make me recalculate.
Exactly. I mean, industrial, commercial, I think we use year-round.
Use
Yeah.
actual usage on industrial commercial because they don't have any sprinklers. If they do have sprinklers, they usually have another meter for their outside sprinkler.
And that's, I would assume, more or less
Makes sense.
steady.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, you got waters using water for their operations. I don't know that it really slows down in the winter versus the summer.
Some air conditioning units and stuff like that, if they're using it, so it's hot, they'll use a little bit more water and get water to us because they're not cooling it down as much, and that will be one of the uses.
On the commercial side?
Commercial side, correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, most of the water we use at home, you know, realistically is baths, clothes, kitchen, toilets.
Correct.
Correct.
I mean, there's really Is there anything else that people use water for?
Not usually, no.
Washing your car?
Well, come spring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always loved that when I saw the head of Silver Hill Road in February. Outside watering is restricted. I'm trying to figure out, okay, who's going to be out there at minus whatever with a hose? And what are they going to be watering?
Yep.
But the sewer stays pretty steady all year.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
say it does, unless we have some crazy I from some rainstorms. But that's
But as
been
far as my
pretty
sprinklers-
minimal.
They don't really hit you, do they?
No, they don't go through,
Because that should go right back into the aquifer.
correct.
I mean, I know some places, some of the cities are less than pleasant about how they charge. And people put in separate meters for their sprinklers.
Yeah.
A lot of towns have 2 meters in there, one for the irrigation. I've seen that.
But we don't do that in Milford, right?
No.
Because you take it in the winter.
Yeah. Some places use, other towns do also, is they'll take their average for the year and then do like 10% reduction, figuring that you lose some for the sprinklers and that type of thing. But we went with the winter months way back, and
10%. I'm going to say my bill quadruples in the
Right.
summer.
but that's how some towns.
Well, they make money.
Right. That's how
That's
some
a
towns do
hidden way. It's a way of hiding tax revenue.
And they're paying a lot more for water and sewer in those towns.
Yes. Like
I don't know if they
Framingham,
pay-
right? We were talking about
Yeah.
Framingham.
MWRA, I
huge.
believe, is
Huge fees over there.
substantial.
it. Yeah.
We don't get hit with that.
No.
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 Now, Scotty Highway Department keeps getting hit every year with more and more demands, or, you know, the permits. More testing, more cleaning, more this, more that. Do we get that at the sewer department?
We've been pretty much the same testing that we've been doing for, years now. Some couple little different ones. Phosphorus was a little different, couple of things, but not that much. It's been consistent with what we've had. What I found was amazing was when they had the water problem, they only test once a week. We test 3 times a week,
Oh, is that right?
which I couldn't understand. I didn't understand that part. I was surprised when that happened.
So the Gazinta were testing once a week.
Yeah.
The Gazauta 3 times a week.
Correct.
Well, we discharge into the Charles River too, so downstream from us, nice and clean.
I was going to say, that's always been, the joke that if you wanted cleaner water, go downstream of your plant because it's
Yeah.
probably the cleanest you're going to find.
Yeah, it is pretty clean.
Yeah.
So you test for biological oxygen demand, and why do you test for that?
That's what you got to remove is the biological oxygen demand. You got bugs and bacteria that cause oxygen depletion of the river, so you have to test for that part of it.
So you're really looking for the oxygen levels to go back up after you're done with it.
Correct.
Correct.
And do you test for carbon load, or?
No, we test for total suspended solids, ammonia, and phosphorus.
So total suspended solids, that's you're getting rid of the stick, stones, and frogs.
Well, it's a fine matter. It's
So it's more of a fine.
suspended stuff that's suspended in the water.
And
When you have all the we have growth is used for bacteria growth is to do the removal. So we have a fixed, we call our treatment plant is a fixed growth. So it's on trickling filters that go around, spray water on it, and RBCs which rotate, and the bugs are attached to it. So they'll take and remove it, like the ammonia removal takes nitrite turns into nitrate, and then you remove the ammonia through the gases, and that stuff. But those bugs and bacteria have a sloughing off, and they die too. And there's a little fine suspended solids on that. So then we'll have to add polyaluminum chloride, or PAC, which we call it, and that will coagulate the solids and settle it all out and take all those solids out of it.
so that's where you get your sludge.
Yep.
So I mean, on all kidding aside, when we look at places like Deer Island, they get a little bigger flow than we do, right? They get those big eggs,
Yeah, they only do primary treatment.
okay?
That's just the first settling it out and stuff, and they do some sort of secondary, a little bit small, but ours is tertiary treatment. When our water comes out, it's a lot cleaner than their water.
So the first treatment, I mean, let's face it, without getting gross, you hit the toity, everything gets pushed down the pipes. If you're not uphill of Hopedale, you have to pump it, right?
Yeah.
So you have to, what kind of pumps pump poop?
We got 10 pump stations throughout the town, and different ones. Our biggest one is Field Pond, which pumps probably like between 100,000 gallons a day, as much as 800,000 gallons a day, that one pump station.
Now, is that settled? Because if I remember right, over the years, when we first sent Rudy into the sewer, we were joking, but Field Pond seemed to be the biggest problem
It's-
whenever it rained.
It's one of them. We've gotten some of it down. We haven't, I want to say, it's been difficult because we've had such dry years, so it's difficult to say, we've gotten good, but the last fall, this spring, we had some heavy rain and stuff, and it didn't go up as high as it normally does. So we've done some good between the sump pump program and some sealing of some pipes, manholes, and different stuff that we've done. Got some I&I work out of it, but we've done.
Now, my drain, basically, anything that I flush or put down the sink goes out one big pipe of my house. Travels the Field Pond, let's just take that one. How big of an area does that cover?
Oh, quite a bit of an area. That covers Field Pond, down in that area, those new houses they built down in there, and also the Milford Geriatric comes down to there.
It goes all the way to Asylum.
Yes, and goes up in Bolden Drive, Purdue, all those areas all come back down to there and then gets pumped back up to Highland Street.
So all that runs downhill from the universities
Yeah,
into like a mega holding tank, or how do you,
it's a wet well.
it's just a big well?
Yeah, just a big well, wet well, where the pump goes into, hit a certain level, the pump will kick on and pumps about 800 gallons a minute, pumps it from there all the way up to top of Highland Street, well, right by the tower.
Isn't that like the tallest part of Milford?
Yeah.
Or is Bear Hill taller? Or
No, I think that's,
I thought Highland Street, that water tower was like
yeah.
the highest elevation we had.
Yeah, it's a difficult pump for that because it pumps at 327 feet up. So that's,
Wow.
So that's a good lift for a pump.
And that's not really pure liquid. I mean, you've got everything in
You
there,
get
right?
solids and stuff into it, yeah.
What kind of pump does that?
Big one.
Yeah. 250 horsepower motor, 200,
200
well,
horsepower.
250 horsepower motor.
150 horsepower
Yeah.
pumps.
Holy
we have two
moly,
of them.
Batman. So
That's
that
the
pumps
next
it up to
station.
Highland Street, and then
Yeah.
you're kind of over the hill.
Then
And
from there, gravity goes down through the Princeton and down that way to the south to, what's that, West Pine.
Congress Terrace, or
No, it
West
goes down
Fountain.
West Fountain and Fountain Street and down through, we put new interceptors that take it all the way down Purchase Street and down through the back and goes to the 24-inch interceptor that runs along the pond.
that's a big pipe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, do they ever get clogged?
The big ones don't usually, but
I say, that's a big pipe. What the heck would clog that beast?
the big ones don't, but sometimes the other ones. The roots can get in there and clog it. That's one thing that can get into clog a big one, but we haven't had any root problems down in that area, but most lines there is problems, you know.
Now, when I think about how old these lines are, when Paul Revere first put in some of them,
1906 was the original sewer system.
1906.
Yeah.
So you're banging quite a number of years.
Yeah.
The roots infiltrate, they crack the pipe.
Yep.
What happens?
Yeah, you got
Leaks.
Leaks. You got I&I. That's one problem that we have with our town is because the system is so old. You got 1906 to probably like 1950 or 1960. You had all clay pipes, and those clay pipes that are old, they do have cracks in them. But you'd be surprised how good they are. It's amazing that they are as good as they are. Some of
Now,
them.
John, do you worry more about it leaking out or what leaks
Both.
in?
It usually leaks in more than out. If you do
So-
leak out, you're gonna have to do a repair automatically, But leaking in, now you try and find it, and the joints are only 3 foot long, so every 3 feet you got a joint, and that.
What do you mean every 3 feet you have a
Those
joint?
pipes were only 3 feet long. That's all they
They
were.
put them together.
Yeah,
Put 'em
the older
together.
pipes.
Right,
pipes.
the old clay
Yeah.
pipes.
Yeah.
Why?
That's how they made them back then.
Okay, we don't do that now.
No, now they're rubber gasket and they're, 13, 14 feet or 21
Okay,
feet.
so I was going to say, why would you
Right.
want something every 3 feet?
It was
They did a
easier
lot
to
of-
put
They did a
in.
lot of work by hand back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the original sewer system, they dug most of it by hand, really. When they were down deep, they would shovel up to one layer, layer.
You
and
mean
then up
one level,
another
then the
stage,
next-
another- Yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
Amazing.
You don't remember that?
No, we have pictures of the original, when they did the original treatment plant, they had oxen digging it, that's how they dug it.
That's why they had so many Myninis. A Mynini on each layer. So now, when I say what happens, it cracks. I mean, obviously, that means you're treating water that you don't need to.
Correct.
Besides sending Rudy down with his snorkel, a pipe cracks. First of all, how do you know it's cracked? Is it just the volume you measure, or?
It's the volume. We used to get, our average was like around 3 million gallons, and then it used to go up as high as 12. We've done all the repairs we've had. We've got it down to, right now, in the summertime, it goes down below 3 million. Like today's flow was 2.8.
Oh.
And then when you go to the rain, we've only reached like 10 now. We haven't gone up to that 12.
Well, that's impressive, because when you look at what they're pumping, the Gazinta doesn't naturally match what you get,
Yeah.
Right.
because you got Mother Nature and all the rain to work with too.
Yep.
But now, if you determine, you're saying, okay, normally I get 300,000 through this section. All of a sudden, rainstorm comes, I hit 400,000. That's an indicator, I would think, that something's letting the water in where
Yeah.
it shouldn't.
Now,
Right.
now the difficult part is finding it.
I was going to say, now, we joke about sending Rudy down the tube, but how do you now take, a half mile or whatever the section is, and say, I know something's wrong?
Well, some of it could be coming in from somebody's sump pump or a drain in their house, that you're getting rainwater or groundwater in there. So it could be coming from there, and the pipe could be good. Or you have to send a camera down there.
Well, you did a program for a long time where
We're
you
still doing
Still
it.
doing it.
Yeah, we're
still doing the
Yeah.
amnesty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Now, I'll put you on the spot. How many people have you prosecuted for putting water in the sewer?
Nobody.
Zero.
Well, no, but I think that's important, because, I'm from the government, I'm here to help you. Not
yes.
necessarily something you'd trust, but here we are, how many years?
4 now.
Yeah. How many
So-
have we done? 130?
Yeah, we're up to around 138 almost.
So, we've done.
So 4 years later, 138 homes,
And we have
you've
about
lived up to your
we have
word
about
that-
5 or 6 pending that we have to do this
but
year.
you've lived up to your word that if you turn yourself in,
Yep.
Right.
it's better for the town, so we're not going to
Absolutely.
come after you.
We're saving when you do it. We're saving what you're sending us.
Plus, they're saving, because if you think about it,
Yeah.
if you're not increasing my rate, there's a benefit to me as a homeowner.
They're worried about their house being flooded with water, so they're not really worried
And there's
about
people that have
And,
purchased homes.
I'm not being funny about it. It's
Yeah.
just, that's their number one concern. So if your sewer bill went up a little bit, I don't think they're worrying about
Well,
that.
no, Tom, what I'm thinking of is if I've got, into the wrong place, I've got my sump pump, and I got it plumbed incorrectly. The net to me is I have a dry basement.
Correct.
The problem is if I'm pumping it the wrong place, you're treating water that you don't need to treat. So
Correct.
the cost goes up.
Exactly.
Right.
So there is a benefit to the homeowner. I mean, they still get a dry basement.
Yeah, but they're splitting that cost with the rest of the town. They're not looking at it that way. Some people don't know. I think some people are not aware that it's tied in there. If you bought a house after, if the previous owner did it, and you had a sump pump, as long as it's going on and
I've
it's
seen that
keeping the
happen.
house dry, you're not worried about
When
where
would
it's
you
going.
ever look at your sump pump?
That's right.
When you have water in the basement, right?
When it's not working,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So if it's working, average person's not going to worry about it.
When they sell homes, do they check for that?
We're picking up, in fact, we had one this week, last week, the person was selling the home, we had to go inspect it, and now they want to let us in that we're gonna take it out of there for them, so it won't be selling. So the home inspection's bringing some in. That brings some in. We also do, when the highway does a street over, we hand out pamphlets up and down the street. That brings them in, so before it gets,
But like you say, if I have no problem, I'm less likely to call you and say, I think I have a problem, right? But if my
Right.
basement's dry and it's always been dry, now if I go to sell my house and they say, you have to let us fix it for free, doesn't seem like a terrible thing.
Right.
They certainly don't do that on a septic system.
But some people just have a clean out that's under the floor, that's below the floor. They leave it loose, so they put something else against it, and they, the water's going in that way. The only problem is when you have a backup, it works in reverse, and it's not pretty.
Yeah.
So
Now, I haven't heard much. Years ago, Lawrence Street and that area, we kept hearing about how the sewers were making donations to people's basement.
That got taken care of.
But I haven't heard anything lately, so
Yeah, well, we did switch some of the piping around that way, but also what we've done is, like I said, we used to get up to 12 million gallons, and we're not getting that.
oh, by
anymore.
cutting it down, you don't
Cutting
get
it
the
down,
back
we
pressure.
don't get the back pressure, correct.
That whole project, when we did Lawrence Street and we put that new pipe that cut across over to Water Street, that was kind of when everything was taking place with the sump pump program and implementing that and doing all. We got done with the I&I, we got done with the smoke testing, we got done cameraing the whole system. There was 120 miles of sewer lines that we cameraed. And we had that wastewater plan that our engineering firm came up with, and we got to start here. So grouting the joints, the cured in place pipe, which was relining pipes, some replacements, and everything's just a little bit at a time. It's making
So
our
it's
lives
just
better.
incremental
Yeah.
improvements of,
Yeah. You're never going to remove 100% of it, but if you get 10%, you're doing good.
well, 10% on the kind of volume you're talking
Right.
about.
Yeah.
Right,
That's a
Yeah.
lot of poop.
right.
And the life expectancy of some of the joint repairs is 7 to 15 years. So then you got to go back and you got to start over.
Wait a minute, say that again? 7 years?
7 to 15 years is what they
Is that
told
like
us.
job security? You'll never be done.
Well, that's what they say. It can last longer, but you should be looking at it at
they're
It's
doing
still
they're
cheaper
doing
than-
the repair from the inside
Yeah.
out. They're not
Right.
digging up and fixing it. The machine's going down the inside of that pipe and doing that.
Is that the
work.
one that roto-rooters and then puts fiberglass or something?
This- No,
so-
sealing
yeah.
the joints, they have a ball that goes in and it injects a gel, goes outside the pipe where there's leaks, goes outside and then it hardens so the water can't come in.
The fiberglass one is like the cured in place pipe where they
Sleeve,
stretch
yeah.
it and it's a sleeve and then they use the steam to expand it.
But this, you just send in an adhesive or,
You go down and, like I said, the joints are 3 feet apart, so you go down every joint, you test it, air test it. If it's leaking, then you bring the ball up and then you put
it just squirts.
it squirts a
Into
gel
every
into it,
hole.
squirts into the joint, goes right around and seals it from the from the inside out. But that's that only lasts 7 to 15 years. So we're at the stage now. We've done all our studies and done the work that we did on that study. Now we got to either do another study. We haven't made a decision which way we're going to go, or maybe buy a truck and start doing that type of work ourselves and start doing that.
I mean, sealing the joints yourself?
sealing the joints ourselves and like do that during the winter times.
And the truck that has a
With the
camera
blue
system. That
camera
way we're not
system.
at everybody's will to do it. We can do it when we need to. If there's an emergency situation where we have to find something, we don't have to call a company, sub it out. There's a minimum we got to pay. We can do everything. And again, it'll be an initial expense, but then over time, it's going to pay for itself. Like our new plant, and like our new building that we're doing.
Yeah, we gave you a few dollars to do a new building to take the water out of the sludge, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So, first of all, why don't you explain why we did this? Why did we want to take water out of sludge?
Well, right now we're sending it at like 3%, 4%, so the rest is water. So what we're going to do, this is going to be 6 to 8%, which that's all they'll allow us to take. And so now, instead of spending all water out there, we're going to be sending
But
sludge.
what people won't understand, at 6%, 3%, the
So
water isn't that valuable.
So the cost of our trucking is about $30,000 a month, 3 to 4
But we
truckloads a
pay
week.
by the volume,
That's
Correct,
right.
by the gallon.
By the gallon.
by the gallon.
So that's what
if
we're
we can
spending.
pack twice as many solids into the 1 gallon, we cut our disposal costs by half.
Yeah.
Correct.
Correct.
And now instead of taking 4 trucks 3 times a week, you end up taking 2 days a week, 3 trucks or 4 trucks.
So we
Cut
end
down
up
on-
saving money because you're not sending so
Right.
much volume out.
And there was talk of having to send it further to a different facility now, so that was going to increase the expense. It was going to be double where we had to take it, so we'll see.
Because we had such a low solids rate?
No, because of rules and regulations on those places that are
Oh,
So they burn it, so now when it's, rules and regs on them have been getting stiffer.
well, it's gotta be hard to burn something that's
all paper.
97% water.
It's paper, once it gets going,
So we built a building.
Not
we're
yet,
building a
yet.
building.
just starting.
Okay, why are we building a building?
We're building a building because we're gonna do, the trucks, the two machines are gonna be in that building. Didn't have any more room in the building itself to do it, so we had to build another building. And then also we made it so the truck can come in there, and right now the fumes and stuff go out into the
So
air.
if you're a neighbor, you'll be happier
Right,
that,
it goes into the air, so now we're gonna take that, put it through carbon absorption and remove it. And also we have these thickeners where we put the sludge in, let thicken, and we're gonna put cover on them and put carbon absorption on them, so that will remove a lot of the smell. too.
Eliminate some of the odor.
Some of the odors.
what
that
do
we
you do
get.
with the carbon afterwards?
You'll change it, you'll have to remove it and get rid of it.
And you have to pay to get rid of the carbon.
Nothing's free.
Everything has a cost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So the building is there, I mean, basically to house the new equipment, to remove.
It's that,
water.
and also we had grit removal was over in the old building. And we pumped it from that building all the way over to there. And that's the grit is, you aerate the water when it comes in and you slow it down. Normal wastewater
So,
flows at
I
5
got a
feet per
pipe,
second.
this 24-inch monster pipe,
Yeah,
that everywhere in Milford eventually ends up at that one pipe in Hopedale.
correct. But
Now it goes where?
now, first stage of it is grit removal, which is eggshells, sand, little stuff like that there. So normal wastewater flows about 5 feet per second. In there, you aerate a little bit, you slow it down to like 2 feet per second, so now all your solids, your
But how about all the stuff
Sand
people
and
put in,
sand
John,
and
that
stuff
they're
will-
not supposed to, torpedoes
No,
and
ev-
things like that? Does that get caught there?
that goes through that, and then the next stage, we have grinders that grind it up.
Oh, so you're not removing paper and torpedoes
No,
and things, you're
no,
just grinding them all up?
mixing them in.
Because, you know, when I heard years ago when you told me that people have flushed whole diapers,
Oh, everything.
I'm just amazed.
The worst thing is everyone says they're flushable wipes, but there's no such thing.
Flushable wipe?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
wipes, the wipes everyone has,
Yeah.
they say they're flushable.
I didn't know they were flushable.
That's what they all say, but they're not. They cause the major problems on all treatment plants.
Here's a question for you. Where does the sewer, Ricky, start?
Where does it start?
Where does the town sewer, the responsibility start versus the homeowner? If I stick a diaper or something down and I plug something,
I mean, it would start with you. I mean,
but I
'cause
mean,
we
does
don't
it start
know
at my
that.
property line or
Oh,
No,
you're
no,
talking,
middle.
it would be the connection in the street.
Yeah,
the
that's-
responsibility
In the
of
middle of the
maintenance?
street.
Yeah, right.
Service
Just-
connections, they call them service connections. You're responsible from the middle of the road, from that Y, all the way to your house.
Oh, okay.
See, tried to get a lot of words
But
out.
now-
All we maintain is the mains. If the main breaks, we'll do the
So
repairs.
if I got a T to do mine, I'm
Yeah.
responsible from here back?
Correct.
Correct.
What happens if I clog it here? It's under the road.
You're responsible for it.
Rotor-rooter.
Roto-Rooter, I have to
Yeah.
Yeah.
call somebody?
Yeah.
Yep, till it gets to the main.
Till it gets to the main pipe, then that's where my responsibility ends. If it gets to the main pipe, now it's town.
Correct.
Right.
I mean, we've had homeowners, like we were saying earlier, about roots getting in the system, you know, when they call, and then once the Roto-Rooter goes, sometimes they camera the system, they find the roots. They have a system that they can chop it up. Ultimately, it usually winds up having a tree or a root or stump get removed, and we wind up doing that no pipe over.
So Roto-Rooter would send through and eat up as much of the roots as they can? But then don't they just grow back?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're better off changing when you go
Yep.
to that point.
I mean,
That's what I'm
that-
saying, if it'll fix the initial problem, but it's only short-lived.
So years from now, it's going to grow
Not
back?
years.
Not even
Not a
years.
year
Not
later.
years.
Oh, really?
Well, it's a
Two to
root
six-
quick. The
two
root
to
is
six
looking for
months.
water. That's
2
what
to
the
6
root's looking
months.
for.
Yeah.
No, wait a minute. Now, seriously, you grind up everything in the pipe, and you're telling me 2 to 6 months later, those
will
roots...
grow, yeah.
Yeah.
It's only going to grow. It only has to grow in a little bit and catch paper or something on there. Once it starts getting caught on there,
That's it.
But they'll, it's amazing to see them because they're like all little finger hairs and it'll be fill the whole pipe up. It won't just be like one or two things. It's solid.
Yeah.
How big is the pipe coming out of my house?
6-inch. Some of the old ones are 5. Some of the old ones are 5, but mostly the new ones are 6.
That I could see. You start getting a little bit, something caught, and then something else catches, and pretty soon, you've got a solid plug.
Yeah.
It's easy to happen. Happens quite a bit.
Now, we've got the new building being built. That's going to house the machines to take water out, allow trucks to come in,
And grit removal also.
and grit removal.
Yeah,
So the first I come in, I do the grit removal.
yeah.
How do I get rid of grit?
Right now, we go through, we call a cyclone. It spins it off, shoots it, pumps it up, and fits through a cyclone type of thing.
So just centrifugal force,
Force.
I'm throwing all the solids out?
Solids out, and it drops out, and then we remove it right now and haul it.
So then that liquid goes where?
Goes back into the treatment plant.
Then what's the second stage treatment?
Primary treatment, they call it. So that takes, you slow the water down. Now it's like probably 2 to 3 hours. And that'll settle out all your papers and your solids and stuff like that there.
So there's still paper and solids and stuff, even though
Correct.
I've gone through.
Right, a small amount goes to the cyclone. That's only the grit on the bottom. There's 2 big tanks that run an hour every day. And it starts running, and then it starts a helicore down the bottom, brings all the grit into the pump and pumps it up there and takes it out.
So then it
Get about a
goes-
wheelbarrow a day out of grit.
Oh, that's not
Yeah,
much.
yeah, not bad.
No, I mean a wheelbarrow doesn't.
Right, but then when you have the heavy rains and the stuff and it gets washed in there, now you'll end up with like 3 or 4 wheelbarrows a day.
Oh, it just doesn't seem like, the whole town is ending up in one place.
Right.
So then once I got rid of the grit, I go to.
Primary treatment, which like I said, that's slows the flow down to about 2 or 3 hours, and that will take
That
all
settles stuff.
settles all your solids out. So
Kind of
you'll-
like a septic system.
yeah, something like your septic tank.
So the
basically.
solids fall, the water drains off.
Yeah.
Then what?
Now I'll go to our first biological treatment, which is the trickling filters, and that's BOD removal. And those are trickling filters. They're just arms that the water goes in, the head pressure sprays them out through the rocks, and water filters through the rock. Doesn't filter, but it goes through the rocks, and it aerates it. And now you have a bacteria. Good bacteria eats the bad bacteria. So you have the BOD.
So you got all the hungry bugs eating up.
Eating all
everything.
Eating it all up. So now from there, you're going to go to secondary or intermediate treatment, settling tanks. Now that those sloughing off, if you have that bacteria, is like a finer matter. So now you go to like a 3 or 4 hour detention time and let that settle out.
How big is this tank, John?
About 40 feet by 10 feet deep.
It's an open tank?
Yeah, 2 of them. 2 round tanks, and there's arms that go around, and it feeds in the middle.
Do I dare
diffuses.
ask?
Those don't. No, the intermediate.
Really?
No?
No, the only one that really smells is when you thicken. You take the sludge out and put it in the thickeners.
clarifiers?
That can really smell. The clarifiers on. It's more of a musty smell than
Okay.
a really strong odor. But when you, do the
won't like it.
thickeners,
Huh?
You won't like this.
Al's welcome to come down.
Ricky, I trust you. If you tell
John
me.
will take it.
and then from there we'll go to we'll do a line where we do a pH, raise the pH up. That's where we're going to go to BOD, the RBCs, and do the nitrite to the nitrate.
How high do you go in pH?
We run it between 8.5 and 9.5.
Well, you're going to kill most stuff at that.
No, it's
pH.
alkalinity, and that's what those bugs thrive on. They need
Really?
They need the alkalinity on that second stage. And they're the same thing now. It's a plastic disc that goes around, and the water trickles down through it.
I never thought of pH 9, 9.5 would be good for bugs.
Yeah. Different type of bug. So that's
I guess.
that's what you want. That's like say take the nitrite, turn it to nitrate, and then you could smell the ammonia when you walk into that part of that
Yeah, because
building.
I was thinking when we used to do fermentation, we kept 7.5. It got up near 8. You got a little nervous. The E. coli would raise their little flags and object.
No, you need it up that high. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Then
And
what?
they'll eat, when you started the building, beginning when it comes in, it's probably like 8.5, 9.5. When it goes out of the building, it's like around 7. They remove,
Well, I would imagine you don't want to dump into the river.
right. But now it goes
pH
through,
9.
then it goes through final tanks. and there's 3 of them, but right before it goes to the final, we had, like I said, we had PAC, polyaluminum chloride, and that's a coagulant to make those solids.
Makes everything fall.
Falls right down. Settles it out. Now, then it'll go through the finals, then it'll go through one more stage, which is sand filters, which is the tertiary treatment. It takes all the little fine matters out of that. And then they're gonna go to UVs for disinfection.
That's going to kill bugs.
UVs.
You're going to zap it with
Zap it,
UV
right,
light
right,
to kill
instead of
bugs.
chlorination. A lot of places, where we were in the river, if we were going to have to chlorinate, we're going to have to dechlorinate.
I was going to say, the problem with adding chlorine is
You gotta
you got to
dechlorin-
get it out.
Right. So that's why we do the UVs, and they work. I mean, basically have 0 coliform counts.
I was going to say, that must be incredible UV light.
Yeah,
Because we're used to our little hoods in the lab with a little UV light, you know.
yeah.
How wide's those 2 tanks there? Where the
Those
UV
3
is?
tanks, yeah, the white ones that are down the end down there. But to show you just how strong it is, like a couple times, if you just turn them on and off, you're burned.
Well, you get cooked.
It's not like you go into those other ones. That's the difference of it, you know.
Now, we hear a lot about, you know, the opioid crisis. And it seems to scare people now. And you hear that they're taking materials with API, with active pharmaceutical ingredient, and down the toilet. What happens? If I flush ibuprofen or, you know, Oxy or something into my toilet,
You got 2 million gallons, you're diluting it up so much, it's like, you know, how much you gonna get to?
but I mean, we don't do anything to remove it.
No.
You know, you're not counting on any non-specific binding or anything to get rid of it. If you, I mean, people would have to know if they dump it in, it's eventually getting in the aquifer.
Yeah, the thing that you have to, like the industrial stuff, that's where you have to be concerned about, because if they put coliforms, when they use clean their lab equipment, if they don't let it dry and evaporate and wash it off, it ends up being down there. So stuff like that. Like we used to have one company that did plating and stuff, and they had a lot of metals, and we had to chase them and catch them and say, you gotta start removing it, and that's what we've done.
Well, I remember they were pretty tight, because when we were down in Maryland, I got warned in the laboratory. So I ran around and threatened everybody with bodily harm if any of the scientists put anything in the
Yeah,
sink. And we got a second warning. And everybody, I mean, the scientists were honest. They were swearing to me they didn't. We got so desperate that we, you know, monitored the cameras, because we failed one Sunday morning. I'm like, okay, it's got to be a limited number of people in
Yeah.
the building on a Sunday morning. Turns out the only one that went in and out during the time period were the custodians. They had switched cleaners. And what they were cleaning the toilets and all with
yeah,
was caustic enough that it was setting off the, you know, the alarms.
yeah.
So I,
Wow.
you know, I got to believe that whoever is monitoring it watches it close.
Yeah. See, like you said, that passes through. We have no trial treatment for that, so any stuff like that would pass through the system.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that people have to, you know, think about. You say, well, you got 2 million gallons, it gets diluted. Well, you got 28,000 people. You know, if each of them threw a pill in, eventually, it's going to hurt you.
Eventually.
If it's raining, it's
For once, the rain helps.
We're gonna hope most people don't flush any pharmaceuticals down the toilet, though.
Well, I mean, that's been the big thing with, like, Tom O'Laughlin, putting the safe in the police department, because he said, there's a safe there.
Yeah.
No question. You can walk in with, I'm being facetious, but with a bag of heroin, open the safe, drop it in, nobody's going to bust you.
Right.
You know, so that if you do have, you know, any of the opioids left in your medicine cabinet, the easiest thing is just drive by the police station and say, here, it's your problem.
And get rid of it properly.
And where do they go with it? And where do they go with it? From the police station?
I think
They pay
CVS
for
or something
disposal.
does it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They pay for proper
Some
disposal.
of the pharmacies have something to do with that program.
Some of them, but you know, to me, if I had to trust somebody, I'd trust my police chief. You know, when he says, none of us are looking at you, you can walk in, you can put it in. I guess CVS, and that's a well-known name, they wouldn't do anything stupid. But, you know, as far as disposal, I feel a lot more comfortable that if I give it to the police chief's safe or something, that you're not gonna, well,
And the Board of Health runs those other things with the paint and the other removals and stuff, which is good, so that they're not dumping them down the sewer, because those things, like I say, those things do pass through, and it's not good
so
for the
what's
system.
big projects coming up?
Well, we talked about that, the new sludge handling facility. That's really our primary focus right now. I think we've all talked about Field Pond Pump Station. We have to upgrade that. That's probably gonna be next in line. And there's a variety of things we've talked about.
It's the one with the 300 horsepower, the 250.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right now, those pumps are on-off pumps, so we want to move those to a variable speed, correct?
You run with variable speed and also a dual pump. Right now, that pump pumps up, that's why it's 150 horsepower, because you've got to take the RPMs and push it up that 327 feet. What we want to do is put it into a dual pump. One pump pumps into the other pump, so instead of running
So like a
that
dual stage.
dual stage, so instead of pumping, like water, when you have most water systems, there's like 5 or 6 stages they pump into, and that's how you get the pressure up. So we're going to look at the same thing.
That's got to be an amazing amount of force
Yeah,
to push poop 350 feet
yeah, it's
in
like
elevation. And
127 pounds pressure.
yeah, I'm just trying to think of how
It's
much force.
0.49 something, I think.
And that's in a, I don't know, 6-inch force main, right?
Yeah,
So-
yeah. 6-inch
From
force
one
main.
to the other, so.
So it's 350 feet, plus it's got to be what, half a mile away?
Yeah, mile.
A mile away from down
Yeah.
Field Pond all the way.
Yep.
How much work, you say you're fixing pipes all the time. How much work is required to rip up pipes?
Replacement is difficult because you've got to deal with the gas, water, everything that's in the ground itself, and then you got to the old pipes, they basically laid it in ledge. So now you come across those type of problems and you do it. So when they do a pipe replacement, if they do 25, 50 feet a day, they're lucky.
Seriously?
Yeah, yeah. Whereas if you put in a new installation in, you could usually do 100 feet a day when you're doing it. But to do a pipe replacement,
Well, the new installation.
25, 50 feet a day is a
Well, I'm
good.
just thinking, you go and tell Scotty, remember that new highway or new street you laid down? We just need to cut a little hole through it.
Yeah,
Well, that's why I try to work at the same time to upgrade some infrastructure at that time. If there's, especially a big section of road, that's the time that we have to try to get in there.
Well, we all remember Congress Street and how smooth the water and the, God, I thought Scotty was going to commit Harry Carey. Because everybody's yelling at him like, okay, when are you going to finish your job?
yeah.
There was a few situations over there.
Yeah, they ran into a few issues there.
Yeah, but he's the visible one.
Yeah. well,
Yeah, nobody thinks about the water pipe underneath. They think about, okay, my street is bumpy. When are you going to smooth it?
All right.
So you don't really have to replace much pipe?
Not usually. We tried not to. We tried doing like repairs from the lining them up and doing stuff like that there. It works, like you said, not doing cost effective. It's more cost effective. It does cost you a lot of money to do it, but it's better than digging them up and replacing them.
Yeah, but if you got to dig up my driveway, my yard,
Yeah.
if you got to dig up my street, that can't be cheap either.
The only thing is when you do the lining of the pipe, usually the connections is where it's bad. So like we call it a top hat. They go through and put the liner in when they cut them all open. Now they'll put another piece of fiberglass up in there and seal that up, because that's usually where the problem is.
Oh, that's where it fails?
Fails also. That's where the pipe is failed already. So now you're fixing that repair.
Now, I remember a few years ago, you had some of John's toys, that 50-foot screw pump, that was like $250,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Still
when you
have 5
break
of
a
them.
toy, you really do a good job.
We're doing a replacement right now. We got one of the RBCs that I was talking about. Replacing it actually today. We started taking the old one out and putting the new one in, and that's a 30-inch diameter, half-inch thick pipe, but it's 30-inch, and it's 38 feet long. So
We have
gotta-
24 of those.
So it's not Tom and Rudy, or, hey, Ricky, you grab one end,
No.
I'll grab the other, and we'll lift?
And the building isn't really designed
It's
to replace
inside,
those.
it's inside a building, so we have to take the windows out and we gotta crane it up, put on some steels, roll it over, put on like a railroad track that we made ourselves and push it out the window, take it off, put the new one on and put it back in.
It's impressive.
And then we gotta put it all back together. There's 32 pies, 32 sections that has 157 pies in each section, so you gotta put all that in by hand, and then it's
So
all
you don't want to
stainless
hear, hey,
steel.
John, what are these parts for?
A couple weeks ago, I went in there when they had taken it all apart and they were waiting for the new shaft. And I was walking through the plant. It was a Sunday morning. And I'm looking. I'm like, pallet after pallet after pallet. Like, I don't know how many pallets there were, but like he said, they're just huge. And you don't realize how big they are when it's on the machine. It's spinning. You're like, oh, that's a big machine. And now you're looking at everything they had to take apart and
yeah.
clean. And
We
it's amazing.
joke about the smell or whatever, but you're dealing with hazardous waste at the end. You have to treat it.
It's not hazardous, but it's,
Well, I don't know that some of the donations from homes, you don't know what diseases they have.
yeah, they don't live.
How do you decon? Oh, they die?
Yeah. So a lot of them don't live in when they get it out there. Those
Because that's
diseases.
always the question. Okay, I've got something touching biological matter. I'm worried about my employees. How do I decon the parts so
Yeah,
they can work on them?
Most of them, the stuff dies. It doesn't live in that type of atmosphere. So those sicknesses and bugs and AIDS and whatever you're talking about, they don't.
Yeah, I mean, I just remember in the lab we had to deal with universal precautions because you never knew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because some of those you're dealing with live.
Yes, you're dealing with biological fluids.
Right, right.
Directly.
Right.
Directly.
Directly. These here, by the time it gets down there, it's not.
The
not
water and all the treatment.
The dilution rate and everything else, yeah.
Water, it dies itself. It doesn't live in that atmosphere. Yeah.
So people always worry about the infrastructure and are we going towards, oh my God, one day we'll need $20 million to fix the building or whatever. What do you feel about our infrastructure?
Well, the infrastructure in the building, that's what we were looking at, is we discussed was we'll do this sludge handling building now, next, then do Field Pond, which will probably be about 600,000 to probably
Million or so,
800,000
yeah.
or a million, something
Yeah.
like that, to do that upgrade of that station alone. And then the next thing is, in the process of doing that, we gotta look at all these clarifiers that we have around there. They're 31 years old now.
What's a clarifier?
Those settling tanks, those primary settling tanks, intermediate settling tanks, and final settling tanks.
Down at the
At the
plant
treatment
The
plant.
plant.
And that mechanism's been turning
for 30 years?
24/7 for 31 years now, so you gotta start looking at upgrading those and doing them over. So maybe put a bid out to do all of them, but don't do them all at once. Do like so many a year and work your way around onto it, you know. And that's our three
Yeah, because you can't
three
stop.
major projects that we're
You
looking at.
can't stop those, right? It's not like you can just shut it down because then,
When you go home at night and you shut the lights off, that plant's still spinning.
right. I was gonna say,
24/7.
You could
Yeah.
phase the different tanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right now, we have two primaries going, one intermediate and one final. But when you get the heavy rain and stuff, you'll have 3, 2, 3.
Okay, so you always have a couple backups.
You usually have a couple backups, unless you have heavy rain, you know, and you can go for months, like sometimes in the springtime, you'll go 2 or 3 months, everything running, and not be able to shut them all down.
Because of the rain.
Because of the rain, because it can last, you know,
Yeah.
fall and spring, either one. And it costs you more now, you're running everything, and costs you more money to run everything.
But yet somehow 9 years later, you haven't raised the rates.
Yeah, we've been,
That's pretty amazing.
We've been fortunate.
like that RBC that we're doing now, right now, the shaft itself costs 38 grand. So,
And you let him break it? $38,000, don't let him play with that anymore.
and,
Turning every
but
day.
you know, and then we gotta do all the nuts and bolts over and do all that, so it's probably another 12, so it probably costs you like 50,000.
50 grand
50
last
grand
time
to
you
do
said.
that, but now, if we didn't do it ourselves, it'd probably cost you another 50 to 60 to have someone come in and do that.
Really?
Oh, yeah. You know, we do little things like that, those screw pumps that you were talking about.
50 grand doesn't seem like a little thing, John. I mean, that seems like a significant savings if you're doing it yourself.
We do it in a week, takes us a week to do it. So,
Well worth the investment, I
right,
would say.
yeah, and a company will come in, it'll take, probably take a little bit, probably the same amount of time, if not longer, but we're just so familiar with it now, because we've done, I think we had 24 of them, I think there's like about 3 or 4 left. Of course, another one broke this morning when we were in there.
You're getting used to it.
Oh, we had gone a long time without one break.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we went like 3 years now, I think, before we lost
we got lucky.
one.
Yeah,
But now you don't mind, because you don't mind, you do mind, but you can understand it, because they're 31 years old, they've been turning 24/7, but these things have been turning 24/7.
For 30 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Not fast, a slow pace, but
That's
it's
a lot of
okay.
weight on that thing.
There's a
though.
lot of weight.
But just anything, if I made you walk for 30 years, 24/7,
But it's an under-design, what it is, the shafts are only 1/2 inch, and the ones are 3/4, so what it does, it flexes as it goes around. So it's like your coat hanger, you know how
yeah,
after you turn it, then
eventually
eventually it gets it. So the new ones are 3/4 inch, so they're not supposed to do that flexing.
well, but if you got 30 years, I mean, it's
Yeah.
like I replaced my
But
carpets.
we started replacing one after like 5 years. We did a lot of work in that building, even the gearboxes. Like, we did the gearbox ourselves when we first started. Those gearboxes were like $8,000, $9,000. Now they're $12,000, $15,000. Yeah, but we've changed every one of them. We changed 24 of them,
Yeah, but anything you do, I mean, when you start talking about, my car doesn't have 300 horsepower. I mean, you start thinking about everything you do, and I think of a little pump.
Yeah.
Well, your little pump dwarfs anything I could imagine. So, all your little gearboxes and all have got to be a fortune to fix.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's just like the screw pumps, and when we had the premature failure, when we had that one that was $250,000, like you said, 25 years, you're replacing them in an interval, and one failed within 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Really quick. It was fortunate the manufacturer worked with us, and
Oh,
we were
Yeah.
able to get.
But you still had to
discount.
take it in
I
and
still had to
out.
go through the process of taking it in
And now you got to
out.
hire a crane to take it in and out and everything else, and it takes you 2 days with the crane and everything else, so it's
but
not.
that was like the Tui toys. You don't dare not buy the fire trucks on the schedule.
Yeah.
Because if you back them up, and then you got 2 or 3 come and do 1 year,
Yeah.
so I would imagine, as painful as it is, you don't have a choice but to keep up with your maintenance.
Yeah.
No choice. And like you said, not a lot of people know what's going on, where it is, what it does, how it operates.
Isn't that why they hid it in Hopedale?
Yeah, I suppose.
Got a bunch of good guys down there that do a lot of work. We've trained them all, and they all do a lot of work, and they do a lot of work down there. It's amazing
How
much
big
of it-
is the sewer department?
There's about 12 and a half men. Not counting myself. We got supervision too.
Now, is it somebody you don't like, you call him a half a guy?
No, we got a part-time janitor.
Oh, I was going to say, I'm sorry, Ricky, he's only a half guy. We don't really count
He
him.
went down and only half came back.
Got caught in a grinder.
What do you see the biggest challenges coming up?
One of the ones, the state's put some new regulations on the I&I work and stuff. They're making it mandatory that you're going to be having to do. We've already been doing it, so it's not something that we're going to have a problem with. But we will eventually, because they think that you're going to get 100% removal when you do I&I work, and it's
100%.
that's what they're looking
So
at.
you're going to send a memo down the tube, thou shalt not crack except the third Monday
It's
of...
like-
No, I'm just thinking, I mean, realistically, with how many miles of pipe you got strung?
Yeah, we probably got about 70, 80 now.
Okay, so you got 80 miles of pipe. There's got to be every day a little crack somewhere.
Yeah, well, not going out, coming in.
But coming in, there's got to be a
Because
little...
there's any crack that's going out, you find it pretty quick, and you got to repair it instantly, because that's illegal. You got to stop those.
But going out would be from the plant, right?
No,
You mean from people's homes?
Yeah, but you could have like we did
Pump
West
station
West Pine Street last year. It had a crack in it, so we had to seal the whole pipe and put new line.
That's
put a
out of the
liner.
pumping station.
No, West Pine Street.
Oh, just the pipe going...
Pipes the
It's
street
a gravity,
from Congress Street up to Gibbon Ave.
So if I
we
crack-
relined that whole piece.
And it starts going out.
It ends up in the brook or somewhere.
Oh, okay.
So-
So I was going to say, it's not in the yard. It's
No,
going to travel...
Travel into the brook or something like that.
No,
but-
just what you
A
want,
force
great.
main can break, then you have to fix that
Right.
almost immediately,
Yeah.
so.
Force main, we've had a
We had a couple recently.
couple recently and stuff. We've had problem down by 495, that's broken, but knock on wood, that hasn't broken in a while.
We fixed the force main from Field Pond to Highland Street
Yeah,
recently.
yeah, last week, a couple weeks
A
ago,
couple
when I
weeks
was
ago,
on
he was on
vacation.
vacation.
Yeah.
Of course it breaks when you're on vacation.
But we're always doing something. There's always something to do.
Anything you'd tell people that would help? I mean, obviously, don't flush bad things down the toilet.
Some pumps, if there's
Some
some
pumps,
pumps that's
some
still
pumps.
connected, give us a call.
And
We'll-
again, 7 years into it, 138 homes, nobody's been ratted out or penalized.
No. And the guys come in and when they leave, you don't know they even did it. They were there, they do such a good job doing it. They
We
repay the
even had, we
lawn.
even had another town come in to see how our program was set up because they wanted to know how to do it, so it works.
And again, I mean, I'd rather find out now. I'm not in any hurry. Things, like you said, are working. Have you come in, there's no pressure. If I want to sell my house and then you find it, well, now I'm in more of a hurry to get it done.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
we're always trying to find ways of where the water's coming from. We don't want to get into having to, prosecute somebody or, we've talked about it, but it's not something we want to do.
But it's not something really needed either.
No.
Because if I admit, hey, I got a sump pump that's
It's not gonna work.
strange,
It's not going to work.
and you're going to fix it for free, why would I say no?
be amazed how many do.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you think about it though, if you have to start investing money in to try to find these people, now you find them, that they have them and they haven't come forward, do you want to charge them now that you've done that? We don't want to, but, come forward.
And while we're in your neighborhood,
Right, that's all.
It's
We're
free.
not going to do that. We're not going to prosecute anybody.
No.
so the universities used to be the big problem, Field Pond.
Still is.
Still is.
Yeah, there's still some I&I stuff, like I said, it used to go up to 800,000, almost $1 million actually, one time went up to $1 million. And it's been like 7.6 now, so it's the highest, so.
And that's probably the area
Some of the
we've done
work,
the
yeah.
least.
Yeah,
Amount of
it's
sump pumps.
working. We know it's working.
Yeah.
It's just, we need more.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for not being on the top of my mind. Because if you were, that just means there's problems. But in all sincerity, the fact that we haven't had an increase in 9 years, the fact that we do have a stable enterprise fund, that we're not worried about having money to do your maintenance, speaks highly of the way you run the department.
Thank you. We're trying real hard.
Hopefully the water department, when it comes to fruition, will follow your lead. And as always, to our 6 loyal viewers, may God bless. May tomorrow be a better night than tonight. Again, if you have a question about your sump pump and where it's going, 7 years, 138 homes later, nobody's been prosecuted, and they've fixed it, and they fix it in a way that you won't know they're there. So take advantage of it. Good night, all. Thank you.
Not too long since I've been home. Been running all my life just